Oh.
I clicked.
Frank, for the love of God, put your pants back on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Old World Tech Fridays.
Now,
Hi.
20% more pants.
How is everyone this evening?
I'm wearing pants.
I mean, you don't have to. It's waist stuff.
Well, I have kilts. I could wear a kilt, but
Kilts are good.
Yes.
I do enjoy a good kilt. Do you remember I'm sure they still make them, but around like 2005, 2006, the Utilikilt became really popular.
Yeah.
And you had like I remember you could fit a dozen beer in a Utilikilt. A few friends had them, and yeah, it was a lot, and it was beer bottles, I might add, not just cans of beer. This was like,
well, they come with cargo. They're like cargo pants.
Yeah, but I remember that was the big claim to fame, and we were at a couple of music concerts, and you'd hear clink, 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 and one of my buddies would walk up with a kilt full of beer.
That's crazy.
Good time. So, Frank, who do we have in the chat this evening?
Oh, we got quite a few people. So we got CDI. Hello. We have Dave of Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. We have Thomas Armstrong. Hello, Thomas. We have Rudy of Rudy's Retro Intel. Hello, Rudy. We have I80386SX. We have Francois. Hello. And I think that's it so far.
Cool. I just got a ping on my phone to remind me that tonight is the largest lottery, I think, in Canadian history.
Oh, wow.
So I had to make and I know it's not going to be your Powerballs that you have down in the United States, but it's $80 million, I think, tonight.
Yeah, it's still a chunk of change.
Well, here in Canada, we don't pay taxes on it, so any lottery winning is tax-free.
Wow.
So I don't have to do that weird math where I divide by half and some depending on what state I live in.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they take 80 or 90% of whatever you make.
Yeah, it's really weird. I think it depends on what state you're in, because I know there was, and it's funny actually. There was a couple of Canadians had some issues previously being on like The Price is Right and winning prizes, and then realizing once they got to the border, they had to pay half the value of the prizes they won.
Yeah, that's
right.
Crazy.
And it's like, well, I just want a new Cadillac, and I'm Canadian, so why do I have to pay taxes on it? And anyway, I remember there was a huge legal battle over whether or not they had to pay tax on. I think they actually got exempt in the end. I think
Starbucks Tech. Hello.
Hey, Starbucks.
Join.
Yes, Thomas Armstrong, 80 mil tax free. Wouldn't we all just be so happy with that? I mean, I'd come visit all of you. I'd invite you all to come visit me.
Yeah, I would have somebody else do the yard work for me.
Yes. Although somebody else is getting pretty hard in your country these days.
That's right.
Right.
So, I've got something here. This day in tech history.
Oh,
do we have a thing for that?
Well, I mean we can lament the one thing that happened last week, which we talked about pre-stream.
That's true.
That is sort of tech history, I suppose, but we can do tech history first.
Hang on, let me hit the button.
That's okay.
This day in tech history, May 4th, 1995, the German company SCOM AG purchases the right to the name, patents, and intellectual property of Commodore Electronics, which declared bankruptcy in 94. So that's pretty cool. SCOM still put out some Amiga 4000 towers and things like that toward the end. May 4th, 2000, the Love Letter computer virus, aka I Love You bug, spreads to personal computers running Windows around the world in 6 hours, spreading love through email.
Now, Eric, when because you would have been in the workforce at that point, not to say that you're old or anything, but do you remember that virus? Do you remember that coming into work? Yeah,
I remember it. None of my coworkers or I got infected by it.
This day in tech history, Coco Nation started their stream. 14 years ago today.
You were all smarter than that, Eric? Is that
Yeah,
what
we
you
were all
said?
smarter than that.
Let's see. May 5th, 1961, astronaut Alan Shepard became the first American in space when he made a 15-minute suborbital flight aboard the Mercury capsule Freedom 7.
Yeah,
Perfect.
he was also the first astronaut to urinate before going up in his suit.
In his
Oh,
suit.
because they had sensors for that, right? If memory serves, they have sensors for that type of things.
Now, I've got an interesting one for y'all.
What's that?
Wolfenstein 3D blast onto the scene May 5th, 1992 by ID Software Inc.
Now the question is, have you played the original Wolfenstein on the Commodore 64
I have not.
or on the early DOS machines?
I played it in its original Klingon.
You played
Nah.
Goldock.
It was followed up the following year with the massive popular Doom.
And not to be also not don't what am I trying to say? Don't forget the very successful add-on for Wolfenstein 3D, the Spear of Destiny. I think Spear of Destiny probably has some of my more favorite of the Wolfenstein 3D levels. Also, Mecha Hitler.
Oh, sorry.
Just say Mecha Hitler.
Played Hexen.
Oh,
which
Hexen's
used
great.
the same game engine, I think.
Yep. You did, yeah. ID Software got a really good amount of value out of their engines.
Oh yeah.
Especially for that time.
May 6, 1998, I is for Apple. At the Flint Center Theater, the same place where the Macintosh was first unveiled in 1984, Steve Jobs introduces the original iMac. This iMac was later referred to as the Bondi Blue, after the color of its case named for the beach in Australia. The IBM 704 was introduced May 7th, 1954. It was the IBM 704 data processing system, the world's first mass-produced computer to feature floating point arithmetic hardware. Besides this ultra geeky distinction, the IBM 704 will leave its mark in computer history before being discontinued on April 7th, 1960. Both Fortran and LISP programming languages were first developed for the IBM 704.
Lisp.
Yep, as well as the first music application. Music.
Was that was replaced by this? Is it System 30 or System 35?
I'm not sure what the predecessor was.
I mean, yeah,
the
successor.
Yeah,
and then it became
my first job out of college. They were still using a System 36 where I was working.
Let's see.
I found out there were still several AS400s being used in my city. But no, specifically in my town. And
a lot of places still use them.
I'm hopefully going to have a line on one at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot of old college library systems still use VAX or AS400.
One of our, and I don't want to give it away, but one of our local distributors of widgets, we'll say, still use one for their widget distributing infrastructure.
I believe Mike's Mess, where he works, they still use AS400s.
Very popular in the automotive industry.
Yep.
Well, they were one of the first, automotive, like Napa, UAP, and Napa were some of the first to actually implement large, computerized inventory systems. Because you think, imagine Napa, something that big. Now, obviously, the number of parts were less back in the day, but imagine trying to do all that by paper and pen. And
oh my gosh! Well, what store? And
how would you know?
Yeah. May 8th, 1886, German scientist Karl Gassner issued a German patent for the first dry cell battery, which used zinc as its primary component. And the last one, May 9th, 1996, Linus Torvalds describes in an email to a mailing list his conception of what he believes should be the first logo for the Linux operating system. This is what soon became the Tux of the Penguin, the brand character for Linux. Perhaps had he known the movie Happy Feet would be released a little over 10 years later, he would have chosen a warbler instead. And that's this day in tech
I
history.
think a blue-footed booby would have been more appropriate.
That's right.
A dodo,
That's true.
maybe,
Dodo.
or
Yep.
a ticked,
There you go.
a yellow tit.
What's that terror bird from Australia that would like eviscerate people?
I don't know, but
extinct or
Tippy
something
Hedren
now.
wasn't
I
a
think.
fan of any birds.
Well, birds are all fake, so I mean, it can be really
Mm.
anything.
That's true.
He says his employer had an AS400 until about 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think that it seems like, and I think we've talked about this before on the show, but it seems like a lot of these legacy systems are still hanging on, but it seems there are fewer and fewer people that know how to do anything with them. And
Yeah.
it seems like there are a lot of people coming out of retirement to manage and maintain these systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you figure older banks still have them.
Yeah. And especially down your way,
hospitals.
where banks are individual entities and not
Yep.
part of a larger sort of,
not part of the government thing.
Centralized bank, we'll say. I mean, here we have fairly rigid rules, so often they move sort of slowly, but they march towards progress. Whereas down your way, I guess it's like, well, we got to pay this thing off. It cost us $10 million in 1970, and we're going to keep it
Mhm.
until
Hey, if it
we can't use
isn't
them.
broken, don't.
I know, but it's just one of those things. It's like, do you guys
Insurance companies?
Yeah, Allstate still uses them.
They still use them.
And I feel like when I worked at the Source, which was actually Radio Shack was using them for their, because we used to have to actually like telnet into a point of sale system, which I assume was on some form of Unix or something.
It probably was Xenix or something like that.
Yeah, it was quite old. I remember, and I can remember the loading screen for it did say what it was, and it was an IBM product.
So listen to this. So I just found an article by Lanza, and this is from August of this past year, and it's about AS400 still in use.
Okay.
And in the article, it says a quick search on the job site LinkedIn reveals more than 2,500 open positions for AS400 professionals.
Wow. So there's a pro tip,
like
boys and girls.
months ago.
Find somebody who can teach you how they all work and be flush for cash for the next 10, 15 years.
No, thanks.
Not for you. I mean, for the young generation, Eric. The young generation.
So they've created...
the gullible.
Yes, exactly. The gullible.
Yeah, so they've created tools like Axes is a tool that quickly converts any AS400/IBM i5250 screen into a modern web interface without changing the source code. Right. So you can add additional features and functionality to your AS400 like super easy.
RAMP, sounds like a terrible idea.
Rapid application modernization process. It's a tool that allows you to build applications from scratch.
Because I guarantee you, there's every one of those bespoke applications, there's some coder at 3:00 in the morning back in 1972 was like, okay, I'm just going to do it this way because I can't figure out how to make it.
Yep.
And that's not in the proper use of whatever. And as soon as you use this application to make an interface, it'll just destroy it.
Yeah. Yep. The job I had 40 years ago that they were still using System 36, it was getting pretty ancient then, and they were having to buy like junk parts to keep it going.
Yeah. Yep.
And Thomas asked the question, do they have an AS400 emulator? Yeah, you can run AS400 on like any modern virtual machine.
Any machine, yeah.
Will run an AS400 emulator. Yep. The problem is that the system is still on an AS400 platform, so it still has all the inherent issues. Yeah. You're not worried about the hardware at this point, sure, but it's still not modern.
It's kind of hard to mount tapes on an emulator, though.
Where's the cassette port? I need a cassette port on this. Where does Virtual Box have the cassette port?
I was once taught how to start up an AS400, and also the giant printers they had that had bands for printing.
Yeah.
At a company, because the last guy that knew how to do anything with it quit. So they just told me, he says, spend a day with him and learn how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, a day.
Yeah, hold on now. Vulcan mind meld. Just suck it out of his brain.
Write it down step by step. You'll be able to start it up. I can't teach you in a day how to do anything with it. And I'm like, I don't want to learn how to do anything with it.
Then it's
So
my
about
problem.
2 months later, one of the sales reps came over to me and says, "Hey, I understand you know how to, like they were using the printers to do barcode printing and stuff." He
Mhm.
says, "I understand that I'm supposed to see you about getting these changed." And I'm like, "I can start the computer up. You're going to have to contract somebody to do the code."
That's funny.
And he's like, "Maybe I should stop selling these." And I'm like, "Yes, you should stop selling those."
That's funny. But we're all like that. I mean, even think of ourselves as just individual humans. What do you hold on to that you need to replace? Like, I'm thinking as men, I'm sure we can have this conversation. We've held on to underwear that we probably should have let go
Oh, sure.
months
Yep.
before.
Yep.
Right? But
They're
for whatever,
still good.
there's exactly. It's like,
You
why am I
just
gonna throw
They
them
you
out?
just
still
turn
have a
it. You just
band
turn
at the
them
top
inside out and wear
and
them. You're
2
good.
bands for the legs.
Yeah, it's
Everything
fine.
else is optional.
Well, see, I'm sure, not sure, but I have like they move down like a line, and eventually they become, before they get thrown out, they become the wash day backup pair. So like when you
Right.
run out of underwear, you're like, well, I still got that one pair that I can wear, and then I got to do laundry.
Yeah. When you
Yeah.
start questioning whether you should even bother wearing underwear,
Yeah.
that's when you throw them out.
That's right. And just
But
getting broke in.
even stuff like it's funny. I was on Facebook here earlier today, and a local repair shop came up in my feed for an ad for a local repair shop. And they're talking about, worried about upgrading to Windows 11, blah blah blah. Ask us how to help. And I was like, oh, that's neat. And I was just reading some of the comments, and there was a person on there. They said, can you help me? My 12-year-old laptop is not Windows 11 compatible. What are my options? And I'm thinking, 12-year-old
Linux
laptop. My dear, go buy a new laptop. That thing has made its money.
Linux.
Or Linux,
It's
yes.
an option.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Linux will work.
But I'm just thinking, like, how many people out there hold on to this kind of stuff? Like, I
lot.
understand, like, we keep it for retro purposes, and I get it. But there's a time before it's retro and it's just junk. And I think a 12-year-old laptop at this point is pretty much junk.
I'm
isn't it?
using a 10-year-old laptop as a just a portable kick around machine right now.
Sure. But it's not your
But I
daily
also have
driver.
Linux on it, so
Yeah, fair enough. I got donated to the school this week. We had a bunch of sort of 8 to 10-year-old, maybe some younger 6-7-year-old machines. But what shocked me was the machines from 2018 are not Windows 11 compatible, and that's why they're donated to the school, because the company couldn't upgrade. They had no upgrade path to Windows 11. And I just laughed. I was like, "There's always an upgrade path. You just got to be,
there wasn't a convenient one for them.
Yeah, and there was no core. But like, technically, if you read the EULA and stuff, you're not supposed to run it on anything without a TPM2. Like, it's built into the agreement. You have to run it on compatible hardware. Anyway, neither here nor there. I'm going to run Linux on it because there's going to be laptops that we dissect in tech class. But yeah, they're really cool. They're like Dell. They're Dell Latitude. No, what's the middle range? Not Latitude. Is it Latitude the middle?
Business class.
That's the business class. So they're Dell Latitude, but they have like NVMe's and no SATA hard drives. They're not even thick enough, I think, to have a SATA hard drive.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm thinking like these are Gen 7, I think, i7 processors, but you can't run Windows 11 on them. Like, but they're massive. They're meant to be like a bit of a CAD machine. So they have onboard NVIDIA Quattro graphics in a laptop.
Oh, nice.
Like, oh, that's
they probably
cool.
have what, 16 gigabytes of RAM?
8 and 16, depending on which model, because there's a couple of different models.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm like, these are totally usable machines. I get it. Like, I'm not, again, I just said I'm making fun of somebody for not making fun, but questioning somebody having a 12-year-old machine. But these are only 7, 8, 6 years old. It just seems, I don't know, weird.
Yeah.
7th gen was a weird time for them to, like, that was a weird line for them to draw in the sand, I think. But it's Microsoft, so they're going to do whatever they want.
I don't use do any video on that machine. It's pretty crappy for that.
Sure.
A couple of times with Discord, and it's like, nope.
Yeah.
But it's fine for just kicking around doing the kind of stuff I do. So
yeah, it says what 386 say. My ProBook G650 G3 was top of the line machine when it came out, as a 7th gen processor, so no Windows 11 for it. It just seems weird. And you think like if they were going to do that, they'd offer like, okay, you can't have Windows 11, but you can have Windows 11 S
Light.
or something,
Yeah.
right? And you don't get any of these cool features, which are probably features you don't want anyway.
I think
By the
it
way,
has more to, it has more to do with not wanting, they just want to cut it off and not support.
yeah, and I
And
get it. There's,
just,
I mean, you think
yeah.
about all the things they have to support now. I mean, at some point they're going to have to like actually chop, and much like the Linux kernel has to, they got to go back and actually cut out a bunch of like,
Yeah.
why is there 386 support still?
They're
Why is
pruning.
there, right? So that's, I get it.
Yep. So yeah, my old tower system that I inherited from my daughter,
Yeah,
it doesn't have TPM.
right.
And I just decided that I was going to bite the bullet and go back to using Linux. I did as my daily driver when Ubuntu first came out
Okay.
for a couple of years, and
I-
ended up getting frustrated with it. So I went back to Windows. And
But-
now I'm at the point where it's like, I've got a VM with a valid Windows license on it because I pulled it off the machine.
Yeah.
I haven't loaded anything onto it yet. I haven't needed to.
Right. And I'll be honest,
So-
like Mint is pretty mint. Like for
And-
the average user, it does 99.99999% of anything they need to do.
And that's exactly what I went with because I
Yeah.
didn't want to have to mess with it.
Yep. And that's kind of like when I, being an IT professional, and I'm sure Frank can attest to this as well, having been an IT professional before, we come home from work and I don't want to mess with a computer. I just want it to work. So I'm a Mac part. That's why I've always had an Apple computer for the last 10 years. It's just because I turn it on and it works. I don't have to muck with it. I don't have to fuss with it. I just do my updates. And when it gets to be 6 or 7 years old, I throw it out and get a new one. Right?
Yeah. The vintage stuff is trouble enough, really.
Yeah, exactly. When I want to muck with something, I'll just go play with that, or I have a home lab that I have a server, my home server that I play with VMs and different things on, right? And then I still like doing networking stuff at home. So I have a whole networking stack. Like I've got a bunch of switches and stuff that I play with and security cameras, but that's kind of fun stuff that's sort of work adjacent, but not actually work.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Right. But anyway, it's enjoyable. I like it. There's a question, Francois. Last system to have a true RS-32 port. Okay, so one of his machines has an actual serial port. And
nice.
Francois says you can actually find PCIe serial port cards. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it'll come to a point where eventually they're just going to make them USB, no matter what format you get them in. And it'll just be some sort of USB.
There's still
conversion.
manufacturing uses for serial. So
yeah, I mean, like a lot of PLC stuff and Skoda, not Skoda. Skoda's a car brand. SCADA, like applications. If you're like water treatment plants, nuclear plants, that kind of stuff, all that still has serial ports on it. Even the new stuff they make, they won't put anything more beyond a serial port because it's, I guess, tried, tested, and true. Whereas USB adds a level of complexity they didn't have prior to having.
Yeah.
Right, because realistically, if they put a USB port on it, all it's doing is taking the serial data, converting it to some sort of USB serial thing, and then spitting it out a cable. And
right,
radio equipment. A lot of old radio equipment is still serial.
lab equipment.
Yeah.
If it's not GPIB, it's serial.
Yeah.
If it's scales and things like that for manufacturing, it's all serial.
Yeah, a lot of scales. And do you guys have scales and measures, like state issued scales and measures? Is that a thing down in the States? Like they have to come and calibrate it and certified by at the state level?
There is.
Okay,
Yep.
so same as us. I wasn't sure if that was a Canada only thing.
No,
hey, Retro Chris is here. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, each state has their own
okay
controls and stuff.
It's federally mandated here. So
well, there's NIST standards that apply, and then each state has their own. They usually adopt the NIST standards for things.
Okay. Yeah, no, here it's like federally mandated, and the federal government takes care of issuing the inspections and that kind of stuff. Now they might outsource it to a third party, but it has a Canadian government sticker.
So calibrating and measuring, gas station pumps, that kind of thing is all federal for you.
All federal, yeah. And if you go up to a gas pump in Canada, you'll see a federal sticker on it. This is when it was last verified, and then when it needs to be verified again. And obviously, if you have questions, there's a number you can call and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, this sticker hasn't been updated," and it's 3 months out of, it's time due. And usually, honestly, most of them end up getting outdated because there's just so much, I guess, the government has to take care of. It just takes forever.
Yeah.
Aruba switches are apparently forcing USB-C. I mean, I've been using Ubiquiti for the longest time, and Ubiquiti doesn't even offer serial input or output for any other switches. Like that seem like I understand some people really want that granular, go to an OS or go to a command line and see their switches and stuff, which is cool. I've done a lot of that, but at this point in my life, I like my point and click GUIs, so it maybe makes me lazy. I don't know. It's one of those things. I did Cisco for long, and again, Frank can attest to this. Forgetting to write volatile memory to non-volatile memory on your router or switch, and then having it restart 3 months after you've done the configuration, and realizing, oh crap, I didn't write that to memory. Now I got to do it all over again. I don't have those. I don't have to do that anymore. It's lovely. I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, if you're buying something like an Aruba, which they're kind of going the way of Ubiquiti for a lot of their equipment, but there's still some diehard fans who want like a Cisco experience, but not with the Cisco price. So trouble comes when you have to stack them. He says the serial port changes every time you move it to the next switch. This means exit PuTTY and go back into it. Oh yeah, I suppose that is kind of a bit of a pain. Again, my management interface just shows me my switches, and I just click on the switch that I'm interested in working on. It pulls up a command prompt if I got to do something in the command line, but most of the time I just use the GUI. And right, what I love is the ability to restart a port. That has been, especially with the Ubiquiti stuff, being able to actually just like power cycle PoE devices. Doing that in a GUI is just phenomenal. Yeah, I just go restart that port, and it only turns off that port and turns it back on. It allows me to read. So if there's a firmware update for a phone or a camera's acting funny, just restart the port. So it's like having a power, control unit outside of the network and being able to power cycle stuff, but it's on the network.
I need to do like the cheapest but not crappiest kind of camera thing for like 3 cameras at this at home.
I use Rayolink for a lot of home stuff. Actually, just go over here. There's a couple of Rayolink cameras I have. So I use Ubiquiti for a lot of stuff, but my Rayolink now connect to my Ubiquiti because Ubiquiti now reads all on-VIF cameras, which are
that was a recent change they did.
That was a recent change they did. So I have a Ubiquiti Dream Machine in my house, which does my network. And then I just add Rayolink cameras. So you don't get any of the AI features, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool,
but like I've also got a couple of Ubiquiti cameras that I purchased just for certain key areas where I'm like, I would probably like some AI features there.
Yeah, we need to have the biggest thing that my wife's concerned about is because of her back and everything, she would like to be able to see who's at the door without having to get up and look.
My wife and my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law love it. They have it on their phone. They open up. They go, "Oh, there's somebody at the front door. Oh, it's the UPS guy. Okay, cool. Let's go answer the door." Or no, it's a sketchy person trying to sell something. Let's ignore them.
Yeah.
Right. But I would say, grab yourself a Rayolink camera. Do you have any PoE switches in your house? Because that's the only other thing I recommend.
I think I've got one switch I'm not using that's PoE.
Yeah. So if you can power everything off PoE, that is like the best way to do it. Having injectors and that kind of stuff just adds to the level of complexity. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, if you need help, let me know. I've been doing this a while now. It's pretty.
Yeah, he helped me with mine. I used the Rayolink too.
Yeah, it's pretty second nature.
Great.
So one of the things I do actually is, even though I have Rayolink and I have the Ubiquiti and the Ubiquiti records everything, I still put a 256 gig SD card in the Rayolink, only because if a criminal decides to go, oh, I'm going to steal the NVR, joke's on them. Everything's recorded to the camera anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So if they beat the camera off the building, I have it on the Ubiquiti, and if they steal the NVR, I have it on the camera. If they beat both of them up or steal both of them, well then, good for them. They deserve to steal my.
They
camera.
They did the right. They did it the right way. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What's 386 saying for small medium business Ubiquiti all the way. Yeah. And it's true. And I'll tell you another one that I've been coming sort of around to. So I was a huge TP-Link guy for the longest time. TP-Link makes some pretty good equipment. And I kind of stepped away from it and went Ubiquiti. But one of my very good friends and former business partners is a big TP-Link guy, and he's kind of trying to get me back into the fold. So we've been playing around with some of their new equipment. It's pretty tight. They basically took the Ubiquity software and reverse engineered it because China, and it has all the same features, and their Omada platform is what it's called, and it's basically the same as the Ubiquity interface they have on the Dream Machine, but now they have it on other switches and routers, and so it's kind of cool. They're not quite there when it comes to some of the cool other things like the door access the Ubiquity does, like the cap cards and stuff, which I've used a few times now. It's really, really good, really fun. And they don't have a lot. They just launched cameras this week, but they're not integrated with the Omada system yet. So that's all coming, I assume. But yeah, if the budget allows, as my friend John said, if they have a budget for Cisco and it's mission critical, let them buy Cisco. If that's what they like, that's. But if people are budget conscious and don't need that level of, not even to say reliability, because the TP-Link stuff and the Ubiquity stuff that I have out in the real world has been very reliable and very good. But there's just, I guess, a brand recognition that comes with, we have all Cisco gear. But if they just need something that works, TP-Link, Ubiquity, fantastic.
Well, for me, it's going to be price first and then convenience second.
But even like the price, and that was one of the things about the Ubiquity is they're offering like the Cisco prosumer grade, so like the Meraki stuff that they have. Ubiquity does it, but there's no licensing fee, right? Like a Meraki access point is $500 or $600. This is the Ubiquity
licensing.
The Ubiquity is like $250 to $150 to $250 for the access point, depending on which one you get. But there's no license. And I have them in use now for over 10 years, so I know their life expectancy is about 10 years. Whereas the Meraki, you get the first year of subscription free when you buy the device, and then you're paying, I think, depending on what you agree with Meraki, up to $200 per access point per year for the licensing. It's stupid expensive.
Yeah.
Right? Now, is it a great product? Yeah, it's fantastic. But I don't think it's worth the price you're paying. It doesn't offer anything else outside of the brand recognition that Meraki is owned by Cisco.
Yeah,
that justifies the price.
Pretty much it.
Right. He says, I work for one of the largest counties in Wisconsin. We have some budget. I bet you do. Right. There's, it's one of those things. It's if you have the budget for Meraki, get it. If you have your budget for Aruba, get it. They make good kit, but
the agency I support at the state uses Meraki for their manufacturing, basically the BlackNet that they have, because they can't use the state's network for that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
You got prisoners that are actually using the network, so it has to be an isolated LAN.
So, I mean, at that point, in my mind, you just put in a separate internet connection, but government.
They don't even have access to the internet.
Oh, well, even there.
You could do that with VLANs, though.
You could, but
they do when they have to get to something that's SOM hosted, state of Michigan hosted, they do.
Yeah.
But for everything that's part of the manufacturing center, it's its own entity and it doesn't need access anywhere. So,
well, I have the mindset that if you can separate it and make it its own physical network, then you've technically air gapped the network.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the whole point behind it is, they don't. I mean, rule number 0 for our agency is stay out of the news. And there's plenty of stories of, they were teaching offenders how to do, PC maintenance, and they took components and they built a PC and hooked it to the network and put it in the ceiling,
right?
And we're using it, Yeah. So we don't want that.
But then, part of me goes, if someone is that ingenious to do that, like if a prisoner's mentor that, don't penalize them for actually breaking the rules 100%. But take that person and be like, okay, cool.
For pen
you
testing.
Have a clear understanding. Let's figure out how we can, best use you.
Yeah.
Give them purpose.
They did have, it was quite a while ago, but they did have an offender that managed to get a hold of it because they allow them to have gaming consoles and things like that, and he managed to hack his way into getting onto the network and and he was very upfront about it when he got caught. He's, here, I'll show you exactly what I did.
That's pretty funny.
Ruin it for anybody else coming behind him, but again, penalized for breaking the rules, but give them purpose and they don't reoffend, right?
Yep.
Like that's the problem. Is
Well, I'm
we
sure
have
he
the,
was
we have the
bored.
punishment part down. We just don't have
Yeah.
the restorative justice part.
Yeah.
Oh my! If only
Well,
we could
someone
fix all
that
the
smart's
problems.
going to get bored, and when they're
Oh,
bored, they're going
exactly.
to do things. Yeah.
Well, it's like kids in school, right? Anybody, the kids that act out the most often are the highest achievers because they just get bored.
Get bored.
Yeah, I-8386 SX talking about the jails having tablets. We also have Wi-Fi enabled devices for staff and things like that, and they're working towards providing tablets to offenders so that they can do things like order materials from the commissary and things like that instead of having to do paper for everything.
Right.
So,
man, it's amazing how we're
good times. I am not working on that project, fortunately. Thank God, because I hate networking. I have never been good at it. Not my forte.
I prefer that.
Yeah. It's just
funny.
not my area of expertise.
But it's interesting when you look at like the technology. Certain areas always increases and becomes very advanced, and then some areas, like we were talking, the AS400s, just kind of stick around, and people just accept that as being status quo, I guess, or it is what it is. I'm not sure why some of the stuff stuck around as long as it did.
Yeah.
But
we have vending machines for inmates too.
Okay. And do you have like personal items in it, like deodorant, that kind of stuff? Or
Yeah,
just
they
food?
can do that.
Okay.
They can also get a sandwich if they want to.
Okay. Cool.
And
for $16.99, they can get a sandwich. How does that work? It's not real money? I'm assuming it works off some sort of card.
Well, no, it is. They actually have like debit cards that have a balance on it, and their families can put money on it.
Okay.
Well, not debit cards. They're kind of like debit cards, but anyway.
Kind of like what you get in university for photocopying and that kind of stuff. Like
that kind of a thing. So it can be charged up.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then they can also, if they work, they have manufacturing where they actually make license plates. I mean, that's the classic. But they also do. They make the uniforms that the guards wear. So they have where they make clothing and stuff like that. They have. They even make Adirondack chairs.
Oh, hilarious!
Stuff like that.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they learn skills that they can use. Michigan's a reform state, so it's not about just housing and penalizing them. It's to reduce recidivism and all that. It's working too, because the population's really started to go down over the last 2 decades.
Perfect. And that's what ultimately you want to get to. You want to get to a point where
you want to put yourself out of work.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or at least minimize the
exactly
to whatever the minimum level is. I mean, there will always be criminals. We'll never not have criminals.
Yep.
Right. And people will always screw up, and you'll always need to have people give people the opportunity to be the hero of their story.
Yep.
And the best way you can do that is to prevent them from going back to old habits, and the only way to do that is to give them purpose.
Yep.
So, and treat them with respect. That's the key to restorative justice, which I firmly believe in. Oh my! Anyway, we got off on a little bit of a tangent here. We're talking.
Yeah, we did.
Restorative. Anyway, so tech-wise, I mean, we have been kind of talking about tech, but last week saw a very sad note in the history of the world.
That's right.
We said goodbye to one of the best
Skype.
early telecommunications platforms. I don't know what you call it, but Skype. Everybody remembers Skype. I remember Skype. I remember using it very early, and I remember it being like my first video call I did with friends in the early 2000s.
Oh, I thought we were talking about AOL or Jabber or
ICQ. We talking about ICQ?
Oh, that was fun. I liked ICQ.
Uh-oh. But I remember Skype being I just remember being passed around. It seemed pretty like Somebody would keep it for a little bit and then they'd sell it. I feel like eBay had it for a while, and I feel like did Yahoo buy it for a bit, or they were thinking about buying it, and then Microsoft bought it in like 2011, and I just remember being passed around a lot, and I remember it really not having any. It was one of those early companies where you're like, well, it's cool, but how does it make money?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if it ever did really find that. Like you could buy credits on it and call long distance, but I really don't think that was a show-stopping, money
It
maker.
wasn't a real big selling feature. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
Although-
they were offering the free calls point to point.
Yeah.
And they never really did charge properly for that, as far as I remember. I never remember paying for Skype other than being able to get my own Skype number, which was kind of cool. But again, that
Yeah.
only worked if you were in certain cities and they had access to the pots in certain cities, which they didn't here in my province. But yeah, I remember it being cool, but almost seemed like it was destined, which it kind of is now, destined to become part of a larger program, which essentially is what
Yeah.
happened. Teams.
Teams.
So,
Yeah.
kind of absorbed it. But yeah, I remember
Yeah,
Skype.
I'm a Teams user.
As much as people, you know what, I'm not one to come to the aid of a Microsoft product, but I
okay.
like Teams, and
It mostly works.
it mostly works. Like people crap on it and act like it's still 2020 when it just came out, and Microsoft was literally throwing it at the wall, going, "I hope this sticks. We really need it because COVID." Right? And as long as your machine is capable of running it, it seems fine. It does what it's supposed to do. I get some the only weirdness I have with it is the link between my phone and it for when I get notifications. So sometimes my workstation gets notifications, sometimes my phone does. Sometimes the call comes in on my workstation, sometimes it comes in on my phone. So there's a disconnect there somewhere, and I'm sure it's like I'm not the only one that experiences that, but I can live with that. I just go answer call on desktop.
I think a lot of the challenges I have where I work is the tenant that we're using. For one, it's FedRamped,
Right.
you know, and the restrictions on it from our enterprise team are pretty tight.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a denial system
Everything.
to begin with.
Yeah.
And then, so I have to kill Teams when I first start my computer up.
Yeah.
Wait until I get my VPN connection all set up.
And then connect it.
Get Outlook running and get it to acknowledge the account. Then I can start Teams.
So I remember early on, and it's still an issue. They've kind of worked the bugs out of it, but multi-tenant or being able to communicate outside your tenant or to a guest as a guest of a tenant was always hit or miss. They've only kind of worked it out now, and it's still a little kludgy.
It's still a little,
right?
With interviews, we have that issue.
Yeah.
Having guests.
So what I've been doing, telling people when I do they're coming into a remote team session for something I'm doing, I was like, don't use Teams desktop, just use the web interface.
Yep, exactly.
And I tell them that because it just kind of works. And there's nothing, if they got to log in, and it just, anyway, that's sort of my little cheat to get it easier for people to come in from the outside to our tenant. I'm just like, just use the web interface. Don't use the desktop app.
That's what we do. And we always start the interview 5 minutes early just to make sure they can connect and everything's cool.
Yeah.
So although I'm doing in-person interviews now, I stopped doing virtuals.
Okay. Are you finding you're getting, what's your level? And again, this is kind of jumping all over the place, but what's your level of actual showing up versus?
There's several reasons why. One, we've run into a lot of people using AI if they're virtual,
right,
to answer questions,
right,
or they have a proxy that's answering questions, and that kind of thing, especially for contractors.
Right.
That seems to happen a lot. But even full-time employees. And then the second reason is that we have a 2-day in-office mandate,
right,
where it's not negotiable, and a lot of people think it's negotiable. So they try they agree that they'll come into the office, then they try to negotiate being full remote.
Right.
And I'm like, the governor says no, sorry. So I can't negotiate that. So having them come in for an in-person interview, it does reduce our geographic area, and it's fine if someone wants to move from California to Michigan to work for us, but they're going to have to come and commit to an interview on site.
Right. There you go.
And it
Quick
does
shout-
weed out, people that are not going to do it.
Yeah. Quick shout out to Mike's Future Retro is here. Hey, Mike.
Hey,
Thanks for joining us. We're just discussing corporate IT and the pitfalls and joys of corporate IT. One of my coworkers sent me a video earlier this evening, and it was a guy doing a group session talking about how to work in corporate IT. There are only 4 questions you ask. Does anybody have any idea what the 4 questions are when someone calls? Did you open a ticket?
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Have you tried turning it on and off? Yeah, that's number 1. That's number like the last one. Have you cleared your browser history?
Yes.
And
have you cleared your browser cache?
Cache,
Not
yeah,
just
sorry,
your history.
yeah, sorry, cache. And the third one was, are you sure it's plugged in? And I was like, I responded, please stop telling people our secrets.
I mean, that's support 101.
It is. Well, that old joke, you watch the IT crowd, which I mean is almost 20 years old now. That first thing was you answer the phone and the reel-to-reel clicks in. Hi, IT, have you tried turning it off and on again? And then we just hang up the phone. Like that is my go-to. And it's funny, I've trained a few of my coworkers to do those steps first, but a lot of them still don't. And a lot of clients still don't, even though I've been like, first steps, you should check this, this, and this. But it's more of a like, right, I need help. Oh my God, it's on fire. I'm like, okay.
It was very similar when I was a student at the university in the 80s, early 80s. My job was to go pick up the equipment to bring it back to the lab for repair.
Mm-hmm.
And the technicians were like, for the love of God, look to see if it's plugged in before you bring it back.
You're looking down, you're like, did I unplug this already? Or did
the university had a lot of floor plugs for things, and people would kick the plug.
Right.
Oh, my computer's not working. It won't turn on. Yeah. Or the monitor would be off. And
right. Or they'd have one of those command centers underneath, all the switches for power, and they'd have them all turned off. My computer's not turning on. Funny.
Yeah. Good times.
Good times indeed. But
my eldest daughter works in the customer support for the agency level, so that's like 4th tier, 3rd tier support. And by the time it gets to her, it's really truly FUBAR by the time she gets it. So
fair enough. Have you guys ever experienced? I have this weird mojo. I want to call it mojo. Printers stop working, but as soon as I walk in the room, they start working again. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
it's like they just wanted a visit from me.
It's the dark crystal effect.
Yeah,
all you have to do is hold the dark crystal over it.
Yeah, I just walk in and they're like, the printer's not working. I walk up and I look at it. I don't even touch it, and it just starts printing. I'm like, oh, there you go. What did you do?
Works fine for me.
I have no idea.
Problem,
My presence.
Yes. Software does that too.
Yeah, you get that off with software.
Where one of the developers would complain that it's not working, they can't figure it out, and I walk up and take a look at it, and I said, "Try it."
Yeah, run that again. Oh, look, it works.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We've got to go. I got a bunch of my kids doing some Scratch programming, and
fun.
I've had a couple of them like. Same thing. Oh, it doesn't work. I'm like, and I look at their code. I'm like, oh, and I just move one thing, and it just all works. There you go.
Yeah.
It's like the whole, you need. It's one thing to know how things work, but it's one thing to be able to pinpoint. I guess the error is the key to, and that's not something you teach. I guess it's something you learn.
It's something you learn.
Right.
It's the key to being a programmer, because nobody writes perfect code the first time.
No. But it's funny, we were talking, myself and a friend the other day about he's doing a bunch of database manipulation right now, getting some stuff in and out of databases, moving some VMs and stuff. And he was mentioning like he doesn't have time to learn things sometimes, so he's been leveraging AI a lot. And so he's basically been, for all intents and purposes, as a programmer, he's been figuring out which AI does the best job programming.
He's been vibing.
Yeah, and what's neat is he's come to the conclusion that they all are going to lead you down the garden path. It's which one leads you down the garden path the least. And so far, that's been Claude. Claude has
actually, I've been using it to do some HyperCard.
Yeah, and
just to see what it can do.
Yeah. it seems to be the most beneficial without being too, again, down the garden pathish.
Yeah,
And it doesn't hallucinate nearly as much as, say, ChatGPT or some of the other platforms do. But he was showing me some of the stuff that he's got it to do, and I'm like, that's actually really cool. Like,
yeah,
but we were discussing it. And he's like, it's one of these things where you need to know what to ask it, and that's where the knowledge of doing things for the last 20 years in programming
yes,
comes into pass. Like, he doesn't need to write the day-to-day code. What he needs to do is be able to ask it to do what he wants it to do based on his knowledge.
yeah,
And I was like, therein lies the rub, as Shakespeare would say. It's not, and
yep.
again, it comes back to the old adage, AI is not going to take our jobs, but somebody who knows how to use it properly will.
Could be more efficient. Yeah.
Right? And
I've
so it
I've
was
been
kind of
playing
cool.
with it.
Yeah.
And it does hallucinate, especially with an
they all do.
old language like HyperTalk
Yeah.
in HyperCard. Because frankly, all it's got to go on is a bunch of material that was online 30 years ago.
Right.
Nobody's doing anything today, really, or not
Right.
much. And
But what's interesting is the ability to load, like, if you were able to get all the HyperCard documentation and load it into it to build your own model. Oh, you have it has it. It has access to it all.
Yeah, because there's sites out there with it. What it'll do is the hallucinations I run into is where all of a sudden it thinks it's object oriented.
Right.
So it starts doing dot syntax with properties, and I'm like,
Right.
no. And I tell it no, and it goes, oh yes, of course you're right. It doesn't know how to do. It's like it
Right.
realizes I'm using.
So do you just simply go, you're not object oriented? Please rewrite that for
No,
not
I tell it,
object.
I said there are no classes. It's not object oriented. You can't, there are no properties to things. And it goes, oh, of course. Or arrays. It assumes that it can do arrays. And HyperTalk doesn't have arrays. It has lists.
Right, which
strings.
function essentially the same, but are not the same. Correct?
Well, in a different way, but yeah. And if you tell it, and this is what I noticed with Chat GPT, it'll get amnesia and forget that you told it can't do that. And after 4 or 5 different prompts, it'll start hallucinating again the same way.
Right.
With Claude, it seems to be sticking.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, but I'm just gonna do one of those little pokes to the chat. I don't know, anybody out there in chat land, have you ever experienced? Have you guys done anything with AI? I know I use it fairly regularly for writing because I'm pretty good at speaking. I'm terrible at actually getting my thoughts from my head to the paper. So I've used it a fair bit for writing to help me sound a little bit better than what I am when I type. And I've asked it questions. I use Copilot a lot, which I know is based on ChatGPT. But I've used it to answer questions when I have questions about stuff. So again, like, how do I do this in a router, or how do I fix this? I'm having this issue with a QoS on this particular piece of networking gear. How do I adjust it?
If you have
stuff that you've done before, but you don't really remember it because you did it 10 years ago, and it's like, I got to remember this. 10 years ago, you said to yourself, damn it, I'm going to remember how I did this, and then you completely forget because you don't use it every day.
If you have a GitHub account, and you use like Visual Studio Code, you actually have a choice between Chat GPT and Claude.
Oh, you do? Okay, they actually give you the nice.
And they give you it doesn't give you much. It's the free level of support unless you buy it.
Right. And I think that's actually where you get better bang for your buck if you're really into it. The purchased versions seem to be better, which I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's, they give you a taste for the, it's like anything, pusher, right? Just a taste, he said.
Yep.
Right.
So, but I'm just playing around with it to see whether there's if the squeeze is worth the
juice.
If the juice is worth the
squeeze. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing I did use it for. The other a while back, we had a convention, and I was trying to remember a line of basic code and couldn't remember it. So I asked it. I was like, write me a basic program to do this on the screen on a Commodore 64, and it just gave me the codes. I was perfect. Thank you. It was to make a pattern. I wanted to make like what do they call it? The maze. It does like it makes the maze on the screen. It was something silly because I'd seen it in a book somewhere.
Was it like Blade Runner or something?
What's that?
Yeah,
No. It was just a pattern a repeating pattern on the screen that looked like a maze.
Yeah.
And I had seen it in the books previously, but I couldn't find the text, and I googled it and I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So from a like finding perspective, I think it works pretty good. Like if you're looking for a piece of information that you can't find, it works pretty good to be able to locate stuff.
Simple things like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty reliable.
Right. So again, I don't think it's going to overcome, become sentient and take over the world.
No.
I think those are kind of hilarious fears. But
no, it's just a predictive algorithm for a large language model is all it is.
Exactly.
But I've been using it to the problem I gave it, and if I had given it write this in C, it would have been pretty easy for it to do because it could just find stuff out there to do it.
Yeah.
But for I've been giving it weird things like write a regular expression parser with a matching function for hypertalk.
And it was like,
because there's not one out there, and I'm like,
all right, I suppose I'll go do it.
And it goes like this, and I'm like, not quite.
Close, but not quite.
Yeah.
One of the other cool things that I liked about it is the ability to ask it to do something and then explain how to actually use it. So, like, for example, I was watching a video where the guy said he asked it to write a program in Python, having never used Python. He was like, okay, now what do I do with this? And it explains, like, okay, go install Python. Here's a link to go download Python for Windows or Mac, or for if you have a Linux, here's how to install it based on whichever distribution you have. And yeah, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like that's it's not just here's the pie. It's also here's the pie and here's how you can cut it or knead it, and right, that was kind of neat. I never thought to ask it also how to do things with stuff that I've
forgotten, it's an interesting idea.
So that was kind of neat. But Frank, you're very quiet. You seem very deep in thought. What gems of wisdom have you gleaned from the internet?
Just trying to figure out these dang tariffs. So I've got to put an order in for JLC PCB for some boards.
Right.
And the actual cost, including PCBs, parts, and assembly, is like just under $300.
All right, so times that by 140%.
Well, yeah, because it added another $600 for duties and tariffs.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's like $900 and some dollars.
Yep, there you go. There's a problem.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So what you do is you ship them over. You get them shipped to my house, and I'll send them to you as loose candles.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I don't understand. It's just
wasn't there Adafruit had a post that they did?
Yeah, there's been a few that have been
the other day. Ron was talking about it, I think, because he's done some videos recently saying, "Hey, look, this is affecting your hobby."
Yeah, actually, I'll post the link to that video in the chat in case anybody hasn't seen it. But it's pretty good.
That's a good idea.
Good video of Ron.
But Adafruit showed where it was going to cost them some ungodly number of thousands of dollars to order some stuff.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, it's like one of those things. It's like when people say we're going to tax ourselves into prosperity, or you're going to stand in a bucket and pull yourself up by the handle. It's like it's not going to work.
Yeah, I don't understand.
It's just one of those things. It doesn't make sense, and I don't think it's supposed to make sense. It's so insane.
Yeah, that's true too.
It doesn't make sense.
That's actually true too.
I also think it's smoke and mirrors. I think it's, hey, look at this thing we're doing. Oh my God, it's crazy. By the way, we're also taking a lot of your rights, but you don't realize it. Anyway, not to get too political, because
that's a whole nother hour.
Yeah, exactly. I could get on a soapbox. We could all stand on a soapbox and explain how it's costing us money, even as a Canadian, it's costing me money.
Yeah.
Anyway, and our new leader is pretty good. I was thoroughly enjoyed by his visit to the White House. As you know, most Canadian visits to the White House either end in diplomatic awesomeness or a fire. So,
yeah,
I'm
sorry appreciate not igniting our White House this time.
This time, everybody gets one.
I'm going to hold that in reserve, though.
Right. Well, last time, those rocket red glare. Those were our rockets.
Yes, yes.
You know that flag that was still flapping in the morning with all the bullet holes in it, and those were our bullets. I'm sorry.
I've heard of that.
I
Yes,
watched the
War of
video.
1812.
Yes, which depending on what side of the border you live on, who won it? Canada views it as we won. Britain views it as they won. The United States views it as they won. So
We didn't lose, I think, was our position at the time.
yeah, I think I've told this story before, but one of my teachers growing up, Father Rye, he was a historian. He had that was his background. He was a history prof, and he had to write a dissertation, obviously, to get his master's in history.
Right.
And he had to write. He was in the United States at the time, and he wrote on the War of 1812 and how the British and Canadians won the War of 1812. And he had to actually go in front of the panel at the time, and this would have been in probably the 60s or probably the 60s,
Yeah.
or even maybe the late 50s, early 60s, and because he's got to be in his 80s now. So yeah, they're probably about that. Anyway, 60s for sure. Anyway, and defend this position that he had taken, and he said it was probably one of the hardest things he's ever done. They were all very fair, and they obviously passed, and he obviously got his degree, but it was
And then
very
They
scary
kicked him out of the country.
Right.
No.
Because it was very hard to
Don't
stand in
ever
front of
come back.
a bunch of very learned American historians and basically say
Yeah.
that their entire understanding of this particular war was wrong.
I did read a college level fairly short book. I think it was something that I just happened to pick it up from a bookstore, but it was actually quite interesting, and I've forgotten almost all of it because it's been a while. But
It was on the War of 1812.
yeah, it was covering the War of 1812.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's
pretty
an interesting battle for sure. And then one of the ones that I find really interesting is the Fenian invasion, when the Fenians invaded from the United States into Canada. The Irish were attempting to give one to the British. They attempted, I think it was it 1890 or 18. It was very late when they did it. But anyway,
really?
yeah. When was that? The Fenian invasion.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one.
Canada. Fenian raids, 1866, 1870, and 1871. They were a series of incursions carried out by the Fenian Brotherhood and an Irish Republican organization based in the United States on military fortifications, customs posts, and other targets in Canada, then part of British North America.
Oh, so they weren't just coming over and doing moose tipping.
No, they were coming over and like blowing up post offices and shooting soldiers, and yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, that same organization created the first submarine. The Fenian organization, I believe, actually were the creators of the first submarine, which was used then 10 years later in the Civil War.
Probably the first ironclad one, because there was the Turtle in the Revolutionary War. They tried to drill a hole in the side of a ship, but they couldn't.
Right.
Because of the copper cladding on the outside of the ship.
I had to look
They
that
were
up
going to
now.
attach an explosive or something like that. Too,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Anyway, very interesting story. If you get a chance to look at the Fenian raids, just weird, like come across the border and shag a few things up and then go back across the border.
Wow.
I think they were attempting to start a second civil war or a second independence war type thing.
Right.
They were trying to poke the bear to see if the British would then invade the United States and then cause an all out, pissing match basically.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. But yeah, anyway, cool. Well, this has been fun. I like enjoying talking history. History obviously is one of my things I did in university, so thoroughly enjoy it.
Did either of you watch the Connections series when it first came out?
Connections? No, I don't believe I did.
James Burke did this series on almost the interconnectedness of things. Like
Okay, yeah.
something would have happened 2,000 years ago, and it would lead towards this
This.
modern
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
It was a rather good series.
So apparently there was also a sequel called Connections 2 in 1994 and a threequel called Connections 3 in 1997.
Yeah, I didn't see the sequels to it. I just saw the original.
And in November 2023, the 6-episode series Connections with James Burke premiered on the Curiosity Stream.
Oh,
So
okay.
we just have a new. Ah, yes, and it was from the BBC, so it was shown on your PBS.
Yep.
Speaking of things that have died over the last couple of weeks, PBS, God rest it.
It won't die.
Poor Elmo's got a LinkedIn account now.
Yeah, well, you know,
Find work.
Yeah,
there were some cuts made, right?
and OnlyFans.
Yeah, OnlyFans is like Elmo like hugs. Elmo really good at hugs.
$20.
No, I was thinking it was like Elmo. The only job we got you is working in the abattoir. How are you with a knife? What's an abattoir? Oh,
Yeah.
Elmo's sad.
Elmo's sad. But what was it? Elmo's sad, but looking forward to
Yeah,
new challenges or something like
new
that.
challenge. Good times. Anyway, you gentlemen have been fantastic. Are there anything you want to announce? Do you have a hardware software stream coming up this weekend, Eric? Are you doing anything?
I will not be doing a hardware stream tomorrow morning.
So, Trina, you heard it here. No hardware stream.
I will not be doing any stream tomorrow morning. I've got things I have to do tomorrow morning. So
Okay. Are you still battling your garden, or have you completed those tasks?
The shovel is still in the ground out there. I'm not finished.
You literally
but no,
stopped mid event. You were just like, I'm done.
Yeah, I sat down and went, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to expand the garden area, so
Okay.
I have to turn the
Nice.
grass over,
Right, to kill it or to make
till it up, and then
Yeah.
lay some dirt down. And I got about 2/3 of the way through it before I gave up.
Nice. Are you going to be planting vegetables or anything of that nature, or just
Herbs mostly. I bought my wife because of her back. She can't work that garden level, so I got her some raised beds too
nice.
that we're going to set up.
Awesome.
So
we actually have to use it here. We're in the town I live in. We have to use raised beds because the arsenic level after 3 or 4 fires that we've had here over the centuries, the ground is too poisonous,
nasty
for human. Actually, my house is essentially built on I would say an late 1800s, early 1900s dump. So like I dig in my backyard and I'll find like pipe stems and old things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not a tannery or something like that.
No, a lot of brick, oddly enough. So I think it was often used as just like, I think when the fire happened, I feel like they might have used this area to dump the burnt out wreckages of the homes and stuff, because there's a lot of that in the backyard. I need to actually at some point in the future, many years probably away, but I'm going to rent a large piece of equipment and just flatten my backyard and bring in a couple of tandem loads of probably Class A, and then do some new topsoil, just because it's so lumpy and bumpy. There's no flat part of my backyard anywhere. It's all washboard.
This yard is rather I change the direction I mow each time.
Right.
And if I go diagonally, it's like
off-road adventures.
Yes. Dave's streaming Sunday.
Yeah, Dave streams every Sunday, so that's awesome, Dave.
That's right.
I look forward to it. I try to attend and or watch when I can. Life is busy. It's Mother's Day, by the way, on Sunday, for anybody who has forgotten. And
it is also my anniversary.
Oh, how many years?
40.
40.
Oh, wow.
My goodness, she could have killed you twice and got out with good behavior.
I'm still worth more alive than dead.
Fair enough. So far.
But and it was rather inconvenient to get married on Mother's Day weekend.
I feel like, did your mother-in-law not approve of the fact you got married on Mother's Day weekend?
It was more of the priest, minister, whatever. pastor that Episcopal church. I keep forgetting what they're called.
I think they're called priests.
It depends,
Okay.
kind of. High church or low church. Anyway,
Right.
he was moving and to another parish, and my wife really wanted him to marry us. So instead of August, it was May. And we planned a wedding in 5 months, or rather, my mother-in-law planned a wedding in 5 months.
You just had to show up in a suit. That's all. The
was
only
her
obligation you
wedding.
had was to show up in a
It
suit.
was my mother-in-law's wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Jerry Seinfeld's line. Do you know why they all dress the same why men are all dressed the same at a wedding? So if the groom doesn't show up, everybody just moves down a line. Right? And then he would say, if why is it called the best man? If he's the best man, why is she marrying the groom?
Exactly. So, well, our best man was dated my wife before she was my wife.
Oh, well, there you go. So
or my girlfriend. So
stand an analog for you then. Perfect.
Yeah, there's a story behind that. I'll save it for another time.
Sounds good.
Right.
So you're not streaming tomorrow. I have to possibly get up on my roof on this one is leaking very badly, and it looks like the next couple of weeks are going to be very wet here in Newfoundland. So I probably have to do some roof work tomorrow.
Well, be safe.
Oh yes. At least if I fall, it's only a 10-foot fall. It's not a just enough to really damage me. Basically, won't kill me, but it'll be enough to damage me.
Right.
That's the most terrifying of all types of falls. I prefer one that's going to kill me if I'm going to fall. Right. Anyway, Frank, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay. Was there anything you wanted to show off before we close it for the evening?
Not really.
What about your cool PC Juniors that you got? I see in the background.
Yeah, I got a couple of them.
That was before we went.
That was before stream.
Yeah,
I got a couple PC Juniors that came with a bunch of accessories and a bunch of keyboards.
And they're still useless.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got 4 of these keyboards that came with it. The smaller kind.
Yeah.
And one normal looking keyboard, I guess.
So those were the actual good keyboards. The PC Junior I have has a stupid chiclet keyboard.
Yeah.
Which for anybody who remembers was terrible.
You haven't lived until you've used one of those chiclet keyboards.
Yeah, with 128K of RAM too. You're not allowed to upgrade the RAM. You have to use it with the chiclet keyboard. It has to be the terrible amount of
stock RAM.
Yeah. It's like, what can you do? You can turn it on.
Turn it on. It'll post, maybe.
The keyboard might work if the RF receiver isn't exactly aligned properly.
You can do a short basic program.
Yeah.
Very short.
Yeah. I did pick this up.
Done.
Antiquing.
Another one.
Oh,
but this one's the CD.
Yeah, this is the mini disc one.
Mini disc.
Yeah.
And
the mini disc. It's not CD.
Yeah, it's a CDRW.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was thinking mini disc like the MD.
But it's the minuscule tiny pocket.
Yes,
one.
Yeah. Now the big question is finding rewritable versions of those is getting more and more difficult.
I did find some on eBay. I'm waiting to see if somebody will offer them to me cheaper.
Yeah. Let me check my stash. I think I actually have a box of them somewhere.
Oh, if you got a box of them, sure.
I'll send down to you. I'll have to go look for them, but I'm pretty sure I have a box of them. I bought my new batteries on Amazon.
Yeah, the battery. I've got a whole bunch of them for the other, floppy drive series. Not the same battery.
Oh, do they still sell the battery? Can you get it on the?
I haven't looked, but I pushed one of my batteries in it. And then found out, this is not the right fit. And, I got it out. So
fair enough.
But it does work. I powered it with the
12 volt external.
cord.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, worst case on terrible. See if you can take a few of these 18650s or 18650s and see if you can like retrofit them to fit in the shell of your old. All right. Just jam it in there.
Yep.
Cool. Well, gentlemen, it's been a slice as always. Thank you for being here with me, and thank you to everybody in the chat. We love having you here. We know you have your choice on Friday night entertainment and watching 3 crotchety men talk about corporate IT and Chat GPT and how it's going to take our gerbs. And being a little bit political, because why can't we? Right? We gotta be that a little bit. We gotta be a little edgy. And we appreciate you being here. So thank you very much. Any last nuggets of wisdom? I know Ron is not here. We did mention that, but Ron is actually traveling today.
Right.
So we wish Ron a very safe travel. And as I told him earlier, to watch out for the sky donkeys. They like to jump in front of planes. And is that a tribble?
Trouble. You got trouble.
Oh, God. It's sentient.
Um,
Please, do you have two of them? Don't put them next to each other. Are you mad?
Oh, they're born pregnant.
Exactly.
We're looking at trying something new.
Yes, that's also true. Possibly new format of the show, possibly a special edition, monthly special edition of the show. We'll have more information in future, but yeah, we're looking at doing a couple of different things. Yeah, you just give you a teaser. Frank is going to do some sort of burlesque show.
That's right.
And myself and Eric are just not going to be here because we don't want to gouge our eyes out.
That's right.
So yeah, I had a fantastic evening with you guys. Thanks so much. And yeah, everybody, as Ron would say, if you can be anything, be nice. And
have a great evening.
Have a fantastic evening.